Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
I'm as fine as frog hair right now, man. I'm telling you what.
All right.
I mean, I'm telling you, this has been an amazing week for our community.
Absolutely.
I am so off the rails excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I know we touched base with each other just briefly and about what to cover on the program this week, and it was just like we have so much success taking place right now. And as I was driving around last night, even after our conversation, I was like, boy, I could talk about that, and I could talk about that. I mean, have you driven by Quick Trip lately?
Yeah.
I mean, that's coming. I've never even
get...
seen a Quick Trip so awesome in my entire life. That's just one of many. But before we do anything farther, I want to say this. Chad has agreed that he's going to be a frequent flyer on the program and that him and I are going to be the ones that are doing the weekly from now on. So it's good to have Chad on board. I love to have Chad out here. My dreams have come true, so I am on cloud 9. You're going to see a little bit less of Sissy, but you're going to see Sissy doing things that are a little bit more in depth and going into a little bit deeper research on some stuff. For anybody that's heard anything about the 3030 project or anything that's going on, that's one thing she has on the agenda.
Good.
Another is to kind of dive into some campaign expenditures and finances and even some funding and some spending that maybe some of these taxing entities are spending in their elected officials. So look out, because we're going to start taking some side steps with Sissy.
Yeah, well, and her passion is outside of. It's a little different than where I'm at and why I'm here. So it's not. None of this is a knock on her. I love her to death.
Absolutely.
Man.
Sissy even was saying, just how where she's going to be fuller is if she has the ability to go through and really dig down into some of these research topics. Come on the program and just educate people. Her heart and mind is in civic education and the things that surround that. And when we talked about that going into the new year, we just decided we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger on that. So Sissy's going to be on later in the week, actually, and we're going to talk to her about the 3030 and have a 3030 breakdown. But not to go too much farther before we get into anything, Chad, we've had a couple weeks here where we haven't had a chance to talk. And there's something that's just itching at me. And I know that you are there for all the meetings and you know what's being said and why and everything. But I'm really starting to hear a lot about a certain commissioner and a debacle that took place with maybe or maybe not knowing what should not have taken place. And anyway, when it comes to some expenditures and it's led us from Harvey County Talk to really look into this, and that's what Sissy's going to be doing. But tell me what happened here and how did all this happen? I mean,
you're talking about $570.12.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it behooves me to say right up front, no rules were broken. That did not occur. Okay? And everything that occurred when you look at the rules of everything, is above board. No problem. Okay? That is not, in my opinion, a get out of jail free card. I think, at the heart of it, let's say exactly what happened, and then I'll tell you a little more. What happened is that Commissioner Becky Reimer took a trip to Texas, and she took a trip to Texas to go to a meeting, convention, call it what you will, that was dedicated to education of the 30 by 30 rule. Okay. This is an issue that has been important to her for a really long time. Where things came off the rails is that, and I don't have specific dates. I know this came up again on the 21st of November. She decided to request a reimbursement for $570.12 for that trip. And other commissioners had a bit of an issue with that. At the end of the day, on the was it the 31st? Yeah, the 31st of October.
It's still October.
At the end of the day, both of the other commissioners went ahead and voted to reimburse $570.12 to Commissioner Reimer for that trip, even though they had a problem with that trip. And the big problem that they had was that it was not pre-approved. And the other problem that was raised by Commissioner Schrader was that this trip was not budgeted for. So they had a problem with that. At the end of the day, they went ahead and approved it. On the 21st of November, Commissioner Haig, I believe his words were, he was going to respectfully request that she return that money.
Okay, now this is after he already had this discussed. We're talking about a month down the road.
Yes, we're talking within 10 days of a month. Okay. He had received some emails, multiples is what he says, and communication from the community that they didn't feel like that was an appropriate expense for the commission to pay for.
Yeah.
And so he requested that she return the funds, and she at that time declined to do so, based on the fact that, number one, no rules were broken, and she is right, no rules were broken, and that the other commissioners went ahead and approved the expenditure, which they did.
Okay, so when we're talking about no rules were broken, what we're saying is, I'm just trying to get a little bit of an understanding here, that there's nothing wrong with a commissioner choosing to go and do whatever they want to do. They can go do whatever they want to do. There's nothing wrong with them coming back and asking to be reimbursed. There's no crime involved in
Absolutely
this.
Not.
Okay. But where the difficulty came from me, and why I wanted to really hone in on this, is it started really making me ask questions about, well, how often does this happen? How many times do commissioners, county commissioners, how many times do school board members, I mean, I understand that there is paid for training that needs to take place for county employees.
Correct.
I clearly understand that there is a need for maybe even some of our elected officials to go through some type of training so they can better understand and learn their job. And maybe on some off chance, there could be them to need to go somewhere for a conference that they otherwise wouldn't be able to obtain through some other means, which would be less cost, maybe more cost effective or whatever. Okay. So, especially if you're paying for it out of your own dime. So leading into all of this, my question is, well, how often does this happen, Chad?
Regularly.
Commissioners just go on.
Okay, well, but there's a process. Okay. And when we're specific to the county commission, when I say regularly, they attend Kansas Association of Counties events regularly.
Okay.
Multiple times a year. And there are trainings that are offered by that group multiple times a year. Now, here's where those trainings differ from what she did.
Okay.
Number one, the county maintains a membership to the Kansas Association of Counties.
Okay.
Number two, every single one of those meetings and every one of those trainings are highlighted for the commissioners by county staff and the county administration.
Okay.
They're always brought up in an open meeting.
So it's always
this is happening. Do you want to go?
Yeah, it's the bottom up.
That always happens.
Okay.
Okay. And the other part of it that is much different is that those things are budgeted for.
Yeah.
Okay. So this kind of deal does not. So what occurred with Commissioner Reimer does not occur on a regular basis.
Okay.
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 And, it's much the same with the city and the Board of Education. They have memberships in these associations in state, and they offer trainings, and board members commissioners can go to those. And it's a budgeted expense.
Yeah.
That's where things are so different. And And so what I think what she really did, more than anything, is that she kind of shined a light on a hole in our sort of, we'll call them commission rules, right? You know, the Board of Education is going through a process right now where they're setting up this sort of policies and procedures manual, right? This is one of those areas that they need to take a look at. And, you know, you can attack this multiple ways, and you can say, well, I don't know that I'm okay with an out-of-state trip. Those are always more expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think she did that. I think she shined a light on the fact that there's not things in place that would say you can't do this.
But isn't there any kind of training here? I mean, because if you go, like, the first thought that I had is I know it was public that this person mentioned, Commissioner Ryan mentioned that she had gone there and intended to pay for it herself, and then when she talked to everybody, I mean, what is it that's, I mean, I don't know, I shouldn't ask this way, but I'm going to say it this way. I don't understand what somebody doesn't get about the fact that just because you go to another state where there's all these elected officials from other counties and other states and all these different entities, that somehow or another, that means that, well, ours is like theirs. Because everything could be different about anything. They could have pre-budgeted slush funds, and we don't have that. And I'm just asking myself, how did we miss that? Isn't there some kind of training that these commissioners, school board members, city officials go through to be able, at the beginning of their elected office, to not make mistakes like these? Or was that just missed? Don't know. I'm asking a rhetorical question. Well, I apologize.
It goes back to...
I mean, I'm asking a wealth of knowledge here.
It goes back to to basically what I said. She's shown a light on a hole in our process.
Yeah.
There was nothing there to prevent any of this. There wasn't even anything there that said she needed pre-approval to do it. It wasn't there. I mean, because of the mood that I'm in, because of how great it's been for us lately.
Yep.
I'm trying to I am positive, desperately trying to say there is a silver lining here.
Okay.
She did provide a silver lining here. Yeah. And there it is.
Is that hopefully in the future that there will be a policy and procedure in place.
Correct.
So that way this will never.
Correct. And the other two commissioners started down that road because when they approved the expenditure, they were very blunt. The motion was, I'm going to vote to approve. However, in the future, these things need to be pre-approved by the commission.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the only place where those teeth occur right now is in that motion. Those teeth need to occur in some other places, like a policies and procedures manual, or just the county rulemaking process. And there's a process to go through to make sure that occurs. Yeah. And I hope they do that. I hope they follow up and do that, because the silver lining is she exposed that it wasn't there. So if, and I'm going to speak to Randy Haig because I know he has made this statement. Randy, you want to take a trip to Hawaii next year? I mean, get it pre-approved.
Yes, get it pre-approved, because that's all you got to do, I guess.
Get it pre-approved, right? If there's some road and bridge conference in Hawaii and you want to go, I mean, this is the very thing he brought up.
Yeah.
And you want to go? According to the rules, all you really got to do is say, hey, I'm going to go. We need some rules in place to make sure that doesn't occur.
And it's interesting that you say that, because when you mention that there is a silver lining, although I'm like the on the hunt right now, and really leaning on Sissy to produce some interesting results when it comes to, well, how do we all do this? I mean, these different entities are different. Is this open the door for everything? And it really has just brought to light my desire to understand better, well, how much money are these elected officials who we think are only being compensated for X per month for their services are now all of a sudden racking up, who knows, thousands of dollars? I don't know. What is every trip of a hotel room and your food and your gas? And then ask the question whether the public thinks that's necessary. So we're on to something. There's a silver lining. And I have to say, Chad, your positivity's killing me here. So okay. Now that we got the negativity out of the way,
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer all the time, right? And you know, I while I have observed Becky Reimer in her first year as a commissioner and been very frustrated by some of the things that she has done, and quite honestly frustrated by this, I also want to say that there is no politician out there that does everything wrong.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, Fox News.
Yeah.
I mean,
right for that matter.
Sorry, Fox News.
Yeah.
Sorry, OWN. Sorry, MSNBC. Sorry to all of you.
Yeah.
There is no politician who must be crucified over every move they make, and there is no politician that will get every move they make right. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Okay? And if the biggest scandal you get on somebody is the color of the suit they wore, seriously, drop it.
Yeah, but you wore the brown shoes
and
with
so
the tan.
and how all that applies to Miss Reimer here is, have I been frustrated watching this first year that she's been? You better believe it. And am I frustrated by this situation? You better believe it. But that doesn't mean something good can't come out of it.
Yeah.
And so that is honestly how I feel.
Yeah.
And I really have been frustrated by some of the things I've watched at the county commission over the course of the last 10 months, 11 months. It's just, you know,
is it because we're all watching somebody have a learning curve? Is that what it is?
And
a lot of our frustration comes from the fact that
I think so.
I scratch my head and I just say, okay, but this is where my stick point is. I never tried to stand up and run for an election if I didn't at least have half a wit's worth knowledge about what exactly was happening and when and why. And I just have a hard time watching people with a learning curve who have stood up and said, hey, I'm the most qualified person to do this job. I have the ability to do it, and you can trust me and rely on me. And then we see things like that.
And again, let's not be naive. There are people behind the scenes that are pulling the strings of every single elected official in this county. Every one of them, her included. Let's not forget that. And those same people are the reason that just about every single person that is an elected official in this county is elected. Okay? Straight up. I mean, one of the things that I said I wanted to talk to you about today was Marge Roberson.
Yeah.
Okay? And I have great and deep respect for her, but there were people behind her pushing her. And it's every one of them. I call Andy Ortiz a friend. There are people behind him. They are pushing him for one thing or another. Yeah. His group has changed while he's been in office. There are people pushing and pulling Kathy Valentine. There are people pushing and pulling Randy Haig. There are people pushing and pulling Don Schrader.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. Okay? Every single one.
Probably every day.
Okay? And so there's people pushing and pulling on Becky. And we need to remember that. And Don Schrader, when it came to this thing, this $570.12, Don Schrader, I think, said it absolutely the best. And when he said it, he looked at her and he said, I don't want you to be insulted, but I feel like this is just a rookie mistake. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Let me tell you, Don, I understood it. Yeah. And I think you're 100% right. There is no person, maybe one or two exceptions, and at least one of them sitting at this table, that can hit the ground running in county, city, or school board without the need of some training.
Yeah.
None of them. There's nobody out there. Sorry. Okay?
Well, and even with me, it's like school hard knocks.
And yeah,
I mean, I went through the whole thing. It was, it's not easy. If you want to ask some questions, I can help people, but I mean, it's definitely a very complex situation to navigate.
It is. And so, I'm
You're making me feel like I should be
know,
guilty for what I'm doing, Chad, and I'm just frustrated.
I expect
more.
If Becky is going to watch this or not, but if she does, I want her to hear loud and clear. Yeah, you frustrate me. You really do. And you're frustrating your other commissioners. But we are not sitting here I am not going to sit here and throw all the arrows. There's got to be some good somewhere. And I think that the good out of this situation is that she said she just shone a light on some place we need to put a little attention to in our rulemaking process, because that is to be negative about it. This is an area where the county and me as a taxpayer most definitely can be taken advantage of by our county commissioners, because there isn't any guardrails in place to prevent it. So let's get them in place. Yeah. Okay. And again, as I'm trying to give her credit, she, during that initial discussion, made the statement that she's all in favor of getting some of those guardrails in place, right?
Yeah.
All three of them were.
Yeah.
Where we stand now, or where I stand now, is on the accountability. You said you were going to do this. You said it is needed.
Yeah.
You better go do it.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely important for any agency, organization, business to constantly be looking at their policies and procedures.
Correct.
To see if there's a way to improve that. And as times change and all of this stuff is happening, well, there's going to be opportunities for us to address situations that take place that never had taken place before.
And so, when you look at this, and you were the one, you were bringing up Board of Education, City Commission, and County Commission. So when we're looking at all three of them, absolutely it is imperative that they have a budget to train their decision makers.
Yeah.
It is imperative, because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And so it's imperative that occurs. It's also imperative that there are some guardrails in place to prevent massive expenditures. And you can decide whether $570.12 is a massive expenditure in a multi-million-dollar budget or not.
Well, what percentage of that is the money that was too much to spend at West Park?
I'm just saying the guardrails need to be put in place, right? So, and West Park, we're working through issues
Don't
there
bring
too.
up the past, Lance.
Yeah. No, Speaking
of things that are interesting that I was surprised to see, especially when here it was this week, but the opening of the wetlands park here in Newton that was completely privately funded. Is that correct? So I don't know the background story on that. I was looking, maybe you would be able to help me with that. But just knowing that, if it wasn't so cold, I'd have been there. But still, I'm going to go there when there's nicer days, It
is a freaking amazing spot.
And it's like, okay, well, we constantly talk about improvements to our community and county, and I'm a government guy, right? So I think this comes through taxation, expenditure of government for the whole rather than the few. And this was just something that, we can all go enjoy. Didn't cost the taxpayers a dime.
It cost us a little.
Okay.
About that much. But what it cost was when, somewhere here and there, city staff may needed to jump in and kind of help with the project. That's what it cost us. Okay. So it's not like we made this big, huge, massive budget expenditure. This project came out of a need for a very specific group of people. So what was occurring, and I don't have numbers in front of me, but and I wish I did, but what was occurring is the pond down there that is got some affluent runoff in it, because of that affluent water, it's coming out at 40 to 45 degrees all winter long. And that's right smack dab in the middle of the Great Migration Flyway. So you've got all kinds of waterfowl that are landing there because it is perfect for them.
Yeah.
But because it's affluent water, I can't go anywhere near it. Okay? Yeah. So even if it were legal to discharge a firearm within city limits,
yeah,
I couldn't go in there and hunt those Canada geese.
Yeah.
Because of the affluent water. The result of that creation of that pond is that there have been literally hundreds, and some of them very rare, species of waterfowl and birds that have been spending time out there. And because, and we humans, man, I'm telling you, once word gets out that you can go see this,
yes,
we're going to go.
Yes.
And so people were going out there, and they had no place. They had no place to park their vehicle. They had no place to stand anywhere. It's all shut off and all walled off. And so, you know, they're standing on the street trying to see these amazing creatures that are in there. They're bird watchers. Yeah. And so there was a need. There's a need. These people need something, yeah, or perceived need. Yeah. And the Alliance of Wetland and Streams, CAWS, Libby Albers, that woman, I'm telling you what, this community can't say thank you enough to her for what she's done here, came up with this idea. And they went to the city, and the city were like, it's a great idea. And then she was like, but we can get a bunch of private funding. Yeah. This is a partner. We just need a partnership here. Yeah. You know, we need some very basic things, mostly permission from the city to do this. And dude, if I'm sitting on a city commission and somebody's coming to me saying we would like to build a park and we're going to pay for it all, yeah, my answer is, how soon are you going to get started?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, if we're not spending the money, how soon are you going to get started?
Yeah.
And you know, then the next question is, what are we going to need to do on a maintenance level from here on in? And if that commitment is minimal, and I feel like it can be absorbed by the Parks Department, dude, seriously, can you start tomorrow?
Yeah.
So that project is absolutely amazing. And one of the unsung heroes of that project, straight up, and I know he's going to hate me for saying it, Joe Robb, okay, because he brought the Armichael Rhodes Foundation to the party, and they became a major funder of that project. You know, and without those two, you don't get the Evergy Green team, which came in and built just about everything. And the lumber that they used is all recycled power poles. I mean, they've got I don't know where it's at, but they've got a facility, and they can turn all of those things into dimensional lumber, and that's where it all came from, folks. Wow. So this project is off the rails incredible.
Well, see, okay, for anybody listening that's thinking, man, you've sold me on this place. I want to go see some cool birds and whatnot. Where is it located in Newton?
You bet. It's on Southwest 14th.
Okay.
All right. And it's just to the west of the water treatment facility.
Okay.
And it's across the street from what is it? Bridges, I think, is the name of the company now.
Okay.
Which, by the way, coincidentally, that south side of the road where that shop is built was built by the Rhodes family.
Okay.
Michael Rhodes used to have offices in those buildings. So it's just kind of like, man, this is such a full circle moment.
Yeah.
And it's a place that he would have absolutely loved.
Yeah. So you just go down Southwest 14th, and this, as you're headed out of town, and you'll go over the railroad tracks there, I think, won't you? And there's a little waterway there.
I don't think you go over the tracks.
Not that far.
Not quite that.
Okay, so it's
I
right there
remember.
by the water treatment. It's like where they have the plane park too.
Yes.
So if you're familiar with where you can do flying planes and stuff, or where your water treatment facility is, it's a beautiful location. It's just on the north side of Highway 50, north side of the
and it's on the north side of the road. There's only about 14 parking spots.
Okay.
Right. So if it's full, it's full. Yeah. But yeah, it's a great spot. I've through the construction process, even before the public was supposed to be out there, I would every now and then drive through Freddy's and drive out there, and basically after they got the parking lot done, and Yeah, it's amazing. And that opening is one of the reasons that we had such an absolutely incredible week and a half.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
Yeah. Well, and there's something else you can do in Newton. I mean, there's all kinds of things to be in Newton. If you're a bird watcher, that's something to be able to do in Newton.
Yep.
And speaking of driving around and seeing things that are improving and coming along, I already mentioned Quick Trip, which is just dang near done anyway. But there is so much happening in our community right now. I mean, it's popping the charts. I don't know how else to say it, but it's like I saw an article that came out in the Kansan, I believe it was last week, towards the end of the week maybe, and it was about another manufacturing plant bringing 50 jobs. I mean, tell me, Chad, where's the list of things that are happening around here?
Well, unfortunately, the cameras won't pick it up if I start standing up and cheering, right?
Yes, right.
So, so much of this feeds into itself, right? So we got Hillsborough Industries coming to town. Yeah. I cannot tell you how awesome that is. There are not words to express it. Okay? Words are my living. I cannot express how incredible this is.
Yeah.
Hillsborough Industries is not a new company. They've been around a long time. And they have been growing and growing and growing and growing. And they are now at a point where they had to ask themselves, can we continue to grow in our location? And the answer came back, no. And they are beloved in the community of Hillsborough. They are active. They are an active community partner. They are a preferred employer. Anything and everything that you want out of a company, they are. And they're at a point right now, they have two major product lines. They do custom pickup truck beds, agriculturally focused, but straight up, if I ever buy a pickup, I want one of those beds. They're really cool. Their turnaround production time, their wait list is like a year long on those things right now.
Okay.
And then their other major product line is livestock trailers, custom livestock trailers. And they're like 2 years out on those because they can't get, they've run out of space and they've run out of people. And so they needed someplace. And that's what's coming here. And we're talking about 50 jobs. We're talking of average salary of around $58,000. And that ain't nothing to sneeze at in Newton, Kansas.
No.
We're talking about jobs that can be and probably will be filled by graduates of Brooks Trade Center.
Yeah.
And when you look at these guys and who they are, I mean, there is absolutely no question that we want them here.
Yeah.
We really, truly do. So they signed the final development agreement, the one with the county, Tuesday. So they are now on the clock, and they're being very aggressive. They have said they want to be going in 6 months.
Wow.
Can they accomplish that? I have no idea.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
Then, if you set the bar at 6 months and you just overshoot it, maybe you're looking at 8, maybe even earlier. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting. The first thing that comes to my mind when you're talking 50 jobs is that might not seem like a lot, but in a community our size, that's a considerable amount. And those are trade jobs.
They are trade
into
jobs.
Consideration the fact that we have, like mentioned earlier, Quick Trip coming. Those are service jobs. Then we have Full Vision expanding right now, which I know they're gonna need more trade jobs out there.
Yep.
We just keep seeing win after win after win, don't we, Chad?
And some of the excitement I have about Hillsborough Industries is tied to why they chose Newton. And I think that's an important note of why they chose Newton. The why they chose Newton. So Tuesday, their CEO went on record as saying when they decided they were going to go for a second location, that they had some requirements. They wanted to be in the I-135 corridor, and they wanted to be within about a half an hour of their corporate office in Hillsborough because they feel like there needs to be that drive time needs to be no more than that because there needs to be support from the home office and vice versa, right? It needs to be going back and forth. So when you look at that, we're talking Hillsborough, and please don't forget I lived there. You're talking Hillsborough, they want to be in the I-135 corridor, and they want to be about a half an hour away from Hillsborough. That right there narrows the field considerably. Yeah. Newton is about as far south as you can go. You can go to Heston if you want. You can make the case for Gospel. You could make the case for Galva. You could make the case, but they don't have great access to I-135.
Well, and then
you can go to Heston.
Yeah.
You can go to McPherson. And Mac is about as far north as you're going to be able to go if you want to stay on I-135.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, I've been told they looked at about 8 different sites. But when you talk about those communities, what is it that's going to make Newton stand out? Straight up. If there's a company looking to relocate to this area and the final 2 are going to come down to Mac and Newton, we're going to have a hard time.
Yeah. Because
Mac can control their utility rate.
Yeah.
And please don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about only the water. We're talking electricity and all utilities. They can control that rate because they have an electrical department, right?
Yeah.
We don't. And so we can't compete with them on that. So we're going to have to compete with them on workforce. We're going to have to compete with them on the availability of housing. We're going to have to compete with them on maybe the price of ground.
Yeah.
The things that we have in our toolkit are much different than the things that they do. And when you hear what the representatives of Hillsborough Industries have said publicly about why they picked this place, we've got more going on in housing. That was the first thing that came up.
Yeah. Places for people to move in the event that we need people, import people.
And we do have more going on.
Yeah.
We really do. And so I feel for those folks that are very frustrated with the Fox Ridge housing development.
Yeah.
I get it. I do. I really do. But at the end of the day, that Fox Ridge development is probably what landed us Hillsborough Industries.
Well, and we have to, I remember years ago, we were having this conversation about what we should do with Fox Ridge. There was going to need to be some improvements made to be able to have some infrastructure in place to grow that as housing development now that there's no longer a golf course there. A lot of space that, well, is in kind of a high demand here, especially with environments that can be built upon that already have some infrastructure in place. Might not be all the infrastructure, but that is a beautiful location. You know, there was no desire to stop developing that place. I mean, if you go down to the very back of Fox Ridge, you're going to find a cul-de-sac in which they had planned for more houses to be built out there. So it's not as though there was never an intention to continue to develop it. I just think that for those that live there, it might be a hard pill to swallow, but this is nothing new. They've been talking about developing Fox Ridge for a while now.
They have, and you know, the discussion that has come up, the frustrating parts of, for me, are when I hear people say, well, they've changed this or they've changed that. No, they didn't.
We've been doing this for a minute now.
Well, and I talked to the developer pretty much the day after he purchased the property. And pretty much everything that he said on that day is what's been coming out.
Yeah.
Now, I will give him that there's been some minor, and they are minor, changes to the plats. But from day one, the discussion was from him, we want all kinds of housing. That means we're going to have an apartment building, we're going to have duplexes, we're going to have starter homes, and we're going to have the high dollar stuff. We're going to do it all.
Mm-hmm.
From day one. So yes, there's been some changes to the number of duplexes, but they were always in the plan.
Yeah.
Always. Yes, there is going to be an apartment building. It was always in the plan. Okay? I talked to him like the day after he bought the property. He had already talked to the guy, to the person that he wanted to have develop an apartment complex.
And if I remember this right, okay, and I have not seen any plans of any kind, I don't think. But if I remember when there was discussion about where all this stuff was going to happen, I don't think they're going to slam an apartment complex down in the middle of a house. It's
No.
like off to the side and more of a
it's
trafficked area that would be conducive for that. And then as you move more towards the interior of where the pre-existing homes are that are high dollar homes, you're going to just gradually get into homes that are newer builds that are like those.
Right. And they have...
So it's like,
they've
what are we
built in-
complaining about here?
Well,
I
and
guess is
they're
my question.
building in what they're calling buffer zones. That's and the city commissioners are referring to buffer zones, and what that is it's those single family homes, and they're trying to make sure that those single family homes are along the outside of that development, and all of the duplexes, townhomes, whatever the heck you want to call them,
Start moving away.
they're further to the south, and they're in the middle of it. The apartment complex is all the way to, I got to get my directions right, west and east, is all the way to the east, which is closest to the interstate.
Yeah.
Which, straight up, when you're trying to sell property, that's going to be the hardest bits to sell.
Yeah.
That's where that's going.
Yeah.
And so it's not like they didn't, when they looked at how they were going to plat this development, which is really a small city, when they decided they were going to plat it out, it's not like they didn't put some thought into it, right?
Yeah. But does it come back to this? It's like, I don't know why this just hit me here, but, we deal with naysayers in our community a lot of the times. I hate to say it. It's like you say, oh, well, Hillsboro's coming. Well, there's always one person on social media. Oh, we should have really been nice if we put it somewhere else. And it's like, well, with you and your, money that you've invested in your company and all that, because you're the CEO of Hillsboro, I'm glad you had that to say. And that since you're the city and a player, that you've got it all figured out. They should have just put it someplace different. But when we come to these naysayers and these negative Nancy's, as we call them and whatnot, we've got so much happening that's beneficial. Why are we... I understand. It's almost like this thing. It's like, well, I want housing. I want housing in Newton. I'm all for housing. I would really think we need some apartment complexes. That's how we're gonna. That's one thing we're missing is some housing units that have 10, 15 occupants available there versus a duplex or whatever. That's how we're gonna do this. But I don't want it built next to my house.
Okay, so here's the deal.
I love Quick Trip, but what about my convenience store that I like to go to, Chad?
Let me tell you a real story. Okay, this happened probably about 6 years ago. There was a house on my block that the city finally condemned, tore down, and was going through the process of getting the lot itself into a tax sale. And a local real estate developer came to me because I lived 2 doors down. And he said, I'm thinking about buying that. How would you feel if I bought that? And I looked at him and I went, you're going to buy it? Great. As well, I'm thinking I want to build something that's kind of close to, kind of like what's behind you, which is some condos. And I said, well, you call them condos. I think everybody else would call them duplexes, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're upscale. Well, but they're duplexes.
Yeah.
That's what they are. I said, I'm not trying to be a jerk. Let's just call things for what they are. And he goes, okay, well, fine. He says, we'll use your terms. I'm just going to build a couple of duplexes in there. Well, how would you feel about that? And I'm like, well, it's residential. What would I care? What would I care? It's still residential. Well, it's a rental. Like, my neighbor is a rental.
Yeah. And what are all rentals bad?
Well,
I'm with
okay.
you. I'm with you. People have a negative connotation to people that are not investing and paying taxes on property. Therefore, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But
they're paying those taxes.
Somebody is, yeah.
They're paying those taxes.
Not directly, but they definitely are paying. It's not like your landlord is just going to float the taxes for you.
Ding. Taxes go up, the rent goes up.
Absolutely.
And any landlord who's an honest man will tell you that is passed on to that renter. That renter is a property taxpayer. Period. No ifs, no ands, and no buts about it. Hard stop. But yes, there's a lot of fear that comes when people start talking about rentals. And I think one of the problems is that, honestly, you haven't lived next to one. You just haven't.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, you're going to be scared. And the things that we hear are, it's going to increase traffic. No. Okay, I live next to a rental. I don't live next to an apartment building, but I do live next to a rental. Yeah. Okay? And I just established I live next to a heck of a lot of duplexes, a number of them. And there is one apartment building that's in my neighborhood. The whole increased traffic thing, poppycock, it's still residential.
Yeah.
Okay? Seriously.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about increased traffic, then you better start fighting against families like mine, because the day is coming. There's going to be like 4 or 5 cars in my house.
Imagine my house, Chad.
Yeah.
I mean, I like basically have like, I don't even want vehicles.
Those kids are going to get to high school. And good Lord, there's going to be a lot of driving that's going to go.
We've got to play musical chairs with the cars just to get it out of a double driveway.
Yeah, exactly. So I've heard increased crime. Again, we're talking residential, folks.
Yeah.
We're talking residential. And at the end of the day, please don't lose focus of that. Is it a change for you? Yes. You better believe it. The lot that's next to you is no longer empty. Yeah. Okay? These are the same conversations that I was having with people before I moved into my house. Okay? So, I'm not going to keep secrets from people. I moved into a Habitat for Humanity house, and people fought against it.
Well,
people fought against it.
Yeah.
Before I moved in, it was an empty lot. After I moved in, it's a house that has one of the highest assessed evaluations on the block. I did not downgrade the neighborhood. I improved it.
Yeah. Well, when it comes back to the negative, it's always the negative connotation. It's like, just because somebody's a renter doesn't automatically make them bad. I mean, I could tell you, I know I live in an area of Newton where there are rental properties. Mm-hmm. There's older houses, 2 bedrooms or a lot of them, 3 bedrooms maybe, but they're smaller houses in the, built around the 1930s to probably 1950s, 60s, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And anywho, commonly there are those are rental properties, and there are people who rent from those. But I'll tell you, I probably have had very few negative experiences with my neighbors. I would say that I understand, depending upon where you live, there might be some better locations than others. But at the same time, I've probably had more interesting times with people that were my neighbors that owned homes in my community than people who were renters. I don't know.
Well, in my particular situation, right, the only complaint that I have about the rental that's right next to my house, it feels like about the time I actually get to know who's living in it, they're gone.
Yeah.
It's about the time that we've actually established some kind of a relationship, and, they're like, yeah, sure, the kids can do this. They're gone.
Yeah.
And that's the frustration I have. And the landlord that and I think he still owns it. I haven't talked to him in a while, but the landlord that owned that property when I moved in, great dude.
Yeah.
If I got a problem, I talk to him. Yeah. I mean, he actually offered to cut down a couple trees for me. There's absolutely. Yeah. But and that whole conversation actually started with this idea of why can't they do it somewhere else?
Yeah.
And that there's always naysayers. And it started with Hillsborough Industries. So I want to read something to you, Lance. And because I really, really feel very strongly about this, and it's why it appeared in an editorial. one can easily look for the cloud of the silver lining. And in this case, Newton and Harvey County have investments in East First Street to make, $250,000 worth, and tax abatements to consider. And they're talking about a $12 million facility. So there you go. There are some who will concentrate on that, and they will grumble about those things, and they will use them as an excuse to cry, bah humbug. But we're going to concentrate on the good news. 50 new jobs with an average wage of well over $50,000 a year, and jobs that can and will be filled by graduates of Brooks Trade Center at Newton High School. You don't get the good without investment. You just don't.
And when we're talking about investment, we're looking at things like retainment of these people from Brooks Trade Centers to go into jobs.
And buy houses in Fox Ridge or the Enclave.
Or somewhere that then allows for somebody else to
let's not forget, that's not the only housing development going on.
I mean, we have so much happening in Newton over the last year.
Autumn Glen 2 just opened.
Yeah. Then you have what's going on over by the, oh my goodness, by the fire station. Is that Autumn Glen 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have the apartment complexes that are going in over, well, there's a few more apartment buildings that are going in. Then we have more development. Everywhere we look on all sides of Newton, there is development happening. Just drive around.
Yeah, it's nuts. I have experienced this before. I have experienced this before. And it was in Hillsborough. I mean, this conversation can go full circle so many ways. The day I moved to Hillsborough to take the editorship of the Hillsborough Star-Journal, there was construction of one form or another on every corner of that town. At the time, we're talking about a town of about 2,000 people. I mean, and they were talking actively about opening a new commercial development. And I remember very vividly going to Mayor Dalkey and saying, "What on earth are you doing? What on earth are you doing?" And it's one of the very first times I heard that phrase, "If you're not growing, you're dying."
Yeah.
You know? And there's another phrase that she used, and she said, the way she put it to me was so wonderful. Again, I'm a pretty young dude at this point. She looked at me and she goes, "If you're going to have a career in the business that you're in, there's something that you need to understand. Because I guarantee the pressure will come, and you may even succumb to call us all a bunch of idiots for putting up this commercial development on the northwest corner of town. But understand, you just asked me what we're doing, and you've been saying you can't believe that there's construction going on all four corners of town. Okay? You can't believe that we've actually found something to fill the old dairy plant that closed. You can't believe that we've got commercial development going on the northeast corner of our town on 56. You can't believe that there's also development going on the southeast corner, which is mixed. And then we've also got the southwest corner, which is all residential, and it's just going crazy. You're sitting there and you can't believe it. All those decisions are 10 years old, and in every single one of them we were called idiots. And in every single one of them I said, you will call this community idiots now. It'll be 10 years and you'll call us geniuses. Quick Trip, no accident. And the decisions that precipitated that are decades old. Okay? Honestly, some of us remember when there was a hotel out there and it was a piece of crap and we wanted it gone.
I could tell you a story about
that
place.
And it got torn down. And now it's what's going to happen with that land. You know, that's not a new decision. And people are going to really lampoon me for saying it, but the KLP, that was 12, 13 years ago. Okay? Where's GAF going to go?
I mean, you just keep... See, that's
These are decisions that occurred years ago.
Yes.
The land for Hillsborough Industries, we've been hanging on to that for a decade. We're going to look like geniuses. And some of what we're seeing now is the result of decisions that were 10 years ago. People are still calling people idiots over those decisions. Okay? And, this conversation, we've talked a lot about Fox Ridge in this conversation. Fox Ridge was not going to be a golf course forever. And a decision was made by this entire community, or at least the leadership of this community, that spelled the death knell for Fox Ridge. It is now time to recover. And we have an outside investor, he's from Wichita, that looked at that and said, I can turn it into something. Again, decisions that were made long ago, they're now coming to fruition. And that's why I'm sitting here going, okay, what are the next set of decisions that we need to make? I think I know one. And Ken Nepper hinted at that during his comments at the city commission right before the approval of the Hillsborough Industries agreement. We're running out of land. We're running out of land for commercial development and industrial development.
And that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. The deal is, if you want to continue to grow, we got to do something about it. I truly believe in all my heart that GAF is going to come to fruition. I really do. But I also feel like we kind of need to wait until they break ground, and at that point, then we need to start asking, where are we going next?
Yeah.
And we need to be ready to deal with the naysayers, and we need to be ready to understand that concept that we're going to get called idiots. And it may be a long time that they're going to call you an idiot. But at some point, you will turn out to be a genius. The unfortunate circumstance for decision makers is that quite often, when you begin to look like a genius, you're already gone.
Yeah, your choices, you've already been long, in the past, both good and bad, all the same. Well, Chad, we're coming to the end of the program for this week. Just so everybody knows, we will have Chad on here. I've planned on having Chad out here every week. So we'll have
after the first of the year.
After the first of the year, of course. We're trying to get it going a little bit earlier. But yeah, we'll have the ability to just move into the new year, Harvey County Talk, with Chad being here with me for our HC Talks. And I'm really interested in some of the stuff that Sissy's working on right now, for sure. So we might have to get her out here with you to cuss and discuss some stuff. But anywho, Chad, like always, I got to give you the last word. So you got the chance to speak directly to the hearts and minds of everybody listening right now. What do you got for them, Chad?
I'm going to go to a strange place today. Tomorrow, during this taping, tomorrow is Pearl Harbor Day. Okay. And I would really encourage folks to actually drive down to Whitewater for Pearl Harbor Day. This came and was placed on my heart earlier this week. We have a seaman who died on the USS Oklahoma, and died in Pearl Harbor and was interred at the Punch Bowl for 70-some years before he was brought home. So that would be a great place to visit on Pearl Harbor Day, in addition to going to the parade lights. But
yeah. Well, hopefully I'll have this out by tomorrow. I think I'll probably get it done.
So, and I got a story about him that's going to run on Pearl Harbor Day.
Okay.
So,
well, be looking at the Kansan people, because as always, Chad has all the goods there. So I appreciate you, Chad.
Thanks, Lance.
Thank you. We'll see you next week. Have a good week, everybody.